like now you got to actually put the banners to, have the timer off because now they got timers. But nonetheless, Josh Kelly, right? And we'll go to screen share. Hold on. Wrong one. Where is it? Where is it? Right here. Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly calls out Devin Haney and Xander Zayas for a fight in Sunderland. Now, before I go to screen share, Josh, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Xander Zayas nor Devin Haney, maybe Haney, because Haney's gone to Australia before, but that was because that was the chance to become undisputed. Kambosos had something he wanted, so that's why he put himself in that position in the first place. He ain't going to Sunderland for one title, right? I'm calling a spade, but nonetheless, let's go to screen share for what Josh Kelly had to say. So here's Josh Kelly. Now, Josh Kelly stated the following, and I quote, "I would beat both of these guys at the Stadium of Light. All right, Xander Zayas, real Devin Haney. Don't be swerving the guy who just beat the most avoided, right? And you know what? To Josh Kelly's credit, these guys, Jaron Ennis wasn't trying to fight Bakram Razaliev. Vergil Ortiz damn sure was trying to fight no Bakram Razaliev. They weren't trying to fight Bakram Razaliev. So in that regard, Josh Kelly has earned the right to talk shit about beating, the most avoided guy in the division, right? Now, like I just told you guys, he's not going to go. Those guys are more likely not going to Sunderland of all places. I mean, if they're going to go to the UK, I could see them going to like London, if it was a big fight in London, because London's a big city. But they ain't going to no damn Sunderland. Sorry, Sunderland FC. Sorry, Stadium of Light. That's not going to happen, right? So that being said, more than likely, I think the outcome for Josh Kelly is for him to fight Xander Zayas, New York City, Puerto Rican Day weekend, big time crowd. I'm even thinking the big room because I think Xander Zayas has graduated. I think what's happened with Xander recently is he's graduated in this last year from prospect to contender to champion to unified champion, and now he's becoming a star right before our eyes. And a lot of people don't like that about Xander Zayas. They're pissed off that Xander Zayas is so well managed and top ranked, and Peter Khan does such a great job to put him in this position. They wish their fighters, were like that, but they're not. So that being said, Xander versus Kelly at the big room makes a lot of sense because you're talking about Xander Zayas coming off of 12,000 plus tickets sold in Puerto Rico, roughly 300,000, 400,000 homes in Puerto Rico TV wise, off the Super Bowl appearance with Bad Bunny, right? Becoming a star. He's starting to fit those shoes slowly but surely that were left behind by Miguel Cotto as the next face of Puerto Rican boxing, right? And, British fighters have a long history of traveling to the UK. British fans have a long history of traveling to the UK. Now, of course, I don't expect Josh Kelly to bring out the amount of Brits that Anthony Joshua brought out when he fought Ruiz or Prince Nassim when he fought Kevin Kelly or anything like that, or Ricky Hatton back in the day when he fought, in New York City as well, or even in Vegas, right? So I don't expect that. But UK versus Puerto Rico in New York City always makes sense. And it's a 3 belt unification, so there's significance there. And I do think, this is my opinion, I do think Peter Khan and Top Rank and all the fine folks there are going to get Josh Kelly to come to New York City and fight in the unification fight. So I respect the confidence of Josh Kelly. I'm happy to now see Josh Kelly on this level because he was one of the guys that, 8-9 years ago when he first came out as a prospect, and I was talking about him when he was 5-0. I liked watching him a lot as a prospect, and then he fought the David Abnesians of the world and, fought some European level guys and didn't look so good. So it's good to see him get on this level because there was a question for a long time if he'd ever be on this level to begin with. But they're not coming to the Stadium of Light, Josh. I'm sorry to break it to you. Maybe if Josh Kelly wants to fight and have his dream fight in Sunderland at the Stadium of Light, I think the better route is going to be to pick somebody in the top 15, to pick somebody that's not a big name, that doesn't have the leverage and the commercial value of a guy like Devin Haney and or Xander Zayas. If you want your fight in Sunderland, it can't be against, Haney or Zayas. Now, maybe like a guy like, I don't know, if I go to the rankings, maybe a guy like Brandon Adams, right, who I'll talk about later on because he's very relevant. Listen, man, Brent Adams. A lot of boxing fans are saying that these guys don't want to fight Boots. They don't want to fight Vergil. They don't want to fight, certain guys. I'll tell you one thing right now. Brandon Adams will fight any of these guys. If you really want to make a fight happen, go pass a contract to Brandon Adams because he'll fight anybody, right? I'll tell you that right now. I know Brandon Adams personally. Look at his career. Look what he's done in his career. Look who he's fought. If Kelly wants to fight in Sunderland, I guarantee you Brandon Adams will take the fight. So if you want to fight in Sunderland, stop calling out Haney. Stop calling out Xander. Call out Brandon Adams. And the same thing goes for Boots, right? Because Boots is not going to fight Vergil next. If Boots wants to fight someone while he's waiting for Vergil, he can call out Brandon Adams too. I bet you if you pull that card, Brandon Adams will fight you. But you know what? These guys don't call out Brandon Adams. Want to know why? Because Brandon Adams isn't a sexy name. Brandon Adams will fight you, and Brandon Adams is a hard fight. So they're not going to call him out. But I digress. Anyway, let me go to these comments. My guy Osiris says, Josh Kelly is trying his best to pretend like Boots doesn't exist. I agree. I mean, now Boots is free, right? Boots is free. He did sign a contract. I understand his position. Like, you beat the man in the division. You beat the guy that Boots refused to even try to fight. So, you don't necessarily got to go fight Boots, but you did sign a contract to fight him. He is still a very big name. There is value in Boots. So, look, if you can't fight Zayas, which I think that fight's going to happen, but if you can't fight Zayas, right, and you can't fight Devin Haney, right, because you're not going to be Devin Haney's first option, right, then you got to go fight. You should try to fight Boots. But if it's really, like I said, if it's really that big of a priority for Josh Kelly to bring a world title fight to the Stadium of Light where the Sunderland FC play in the Premier League, then the guy to fight, in my opinion, is Brandon Adams because he's a #1 contender. Brandon Adams doesn't have the leverage these guys has, and Brandon Adams will fight any one of these guys. These guys is doing a good job of acting like they're tough and acting like everyone's scared of them, right? You're not calling out the right people. Call out Brandon Adams. Go send him a contract and watch what happens. Watch how fast a fight gets done. What are your thoughts on Spence versus Zoo? Do you think the near layoff will be good or bad for Spence? I think it's a fun fight. I think it's a good fight considering where both guys are at. We don't know what to make of Spence because we haven't seen Spence since Crowder put the beating on him. And Tim Tszyu has had a lot of tough fights recently. So I think it's a fun crossroads fight. Personally, I don't think Errol Spence really wants to box like that. I think he's doing this out of pride, but it's good to see him try to come back and at least continue his career after his first and only loss of his career, because I feel like you don't really know how great a fighter is until he has to really bounce back from a loss, and to this point he hasn't tried. So good on him for getting back in the ring. Shout out to my guy Chris. He says Xander is good, but he's arguably the weakest champion of D4. I think Kelly should beat him straight up. I don't think that at all. I think that's crazy talk. How can you say he's the weakest guy in the division based on what? He's the one beating the really tough guys. Like, listen, if you leave it to Vergil and Boots, they would never fight the guys Xander fought. As crazy as it sounds, everyone always talks about like Xander and who Xander doesn't want to fight or who Xander's not fighting. Boots and Vergil will never fight the guys Xander fought. Boots and Vergil will not fight Abbas Barrow or Jorge Garcia Perez or any of them guys. They won't. Because look who they fought. Look who both of them have fought in the 54 run so far. Brandon Adams will beat Agyarko next and become the IBF mandatory. He'll end up winning a world title. Listen, he's a dangerous fighter. That's one guy that I really want to see like achieve something in boxing, because he really has to earn everything he gets in the sport. And like I said, you brought up a great point, and I completely forgot about that. So thank you for bringing it up, talkers. Brandon Adams already has a fight scheduled, I believe, in April with Kalmi Agyarko, the Black Irishman, the man who's trying to become the first Black Irishman to become a world champion. I didn't even know they had Black people in Ireland until Kalmi Agyarko. So he put me on game. I learned something new about the world because of Agyarko. But if he beats him, like, you're right, he becomes a mandatory challenger. And I think the stage is set for Josh Kelly to bring Brandon Adams to the UK and get his dream fight in the Stadium of Light, which is what I think his priority is. No matter what anybody says about Josh Kelly, I think Josh Kelly's main priority actually is unification. I don't think it's boots either. I think his main priority is to fulfill his dream of fighting in the soccer stadium, in the football stadium, the Stadium of Light, where his favorite team plays. Which for a lot of these British fighters, that's what they want to do. When they win a world title, one of their dreams is to fight and defend a title at the stadium of whatever the favorite local football club is. So in Tony Bellew's case, Goodison Park up the Toffees. In Kell Brook's case, Bramall Lane, the home of Sheffield United. And the list goes on and on and on of fighters that have always wanted to fight in where their favorite teams play. Tyson Fury, even for a time. Tyson Fury, he wanted to fight at Old Trafford where Manchester United played. So when you talk about these British fighters, right, when they win a world title, that's always like something that's on the forefront of their mind. And Josh Kelly's no different. Brandon Adams low-key made Bohachuk irrelevant. Nobody really mentions him anymore. That is a feat. That's what I'm saying. That's why Brandon Adams is one of my favorite fighters in the 154-pound division. Like, he really is. He has been for quite a while, because I respect fighters I respect fighters that have to really get it out the mud. Because one thing that I'm learning about boxing, and one thing I've really come to understand about boxing fans and what they respond to, for the majority of boxing fans, what I'm learning is that it's the pampered, overhyped fighters that they love, right? And I'm going to name them for you, like your Boots and your Vergils, like them. Them guys are pampered and overhyped and overrated, right? And boxing fans have a hard on for them. But the guys that don't really have the backing of the promoter, that have to take tough fights, I respect those guys, because they can't afford to lose a fight, and they don't have the luxury to fight Usima Lima and make millions of dollars. So when they become champion, it just hits a little different, right? So that's why I respect Brandon Adams. You mentioned Sergey Bohachuk, a guy that also fought Vergil Ortiz, right? And I would say that in both Bohachuk fights, Brandon Adams beat Bohachuk more definitively than Vergil Ortiz did. He knocked him out in the first fight when he was down on the cards, and in the second fight, he outworked him and threw a bunch of punches. So he beat him in two different ways, and he beat him in better fashion both times. And to me, so that puts Brandon Adams at a certain standing in the 154-pound division. That's what I'm saying, and I'm glad you said it, because I've been saying this for a while. Boots gets left out of all the title fights because he takes the easy route, and his fan base, especially the people here on YouTube, they're okay with that because they feel like everyone's actually ducking him. But there's plenty of fighters in every weight class that if you were to really call them out, if you were to really send them a contract, they would fight your ass. At the drop of a dime, you just ain't really trying to fight those guys because you want everything to be perfect, because you've been maneuvered a certain way your whole career and you're used to that.